Okay, right. So welcome to this taster session of Advanced Trailblazers. Advanced Trailblazers is was for year 10s and 11s, but I let year 9s come in the summer before they go into year 10 so they can sort of get a sense of whether it's the right sort of class for them. In Advanced Trailblazers, we do mostly analysis. So we look at extracts each week. But sometimes we sort of deviate and work on a little bit of creative writing or non-fiction writing. And we generally focus on the assessment objectives. All at Zoom's doing this weird thing where it makes your head sort of move around. We generally focus on the assessment objectives that are needed for your GCSE exams further down the line. So it's not exam board specific, it's not exam question specific, but it is skills specific. So if you come to Advanced Trailblazers for all of year 9, all of year 10 and all of year 11, by the time you come around to your GCSE exams, you're going to feel a lot more confident with the skills that are being tested. So there we go. That's a bit about Advanced Trailblazers. So this week, in this session, we are going to practice our language analysis skills, maybe some structural analysis if we have time. And the extract we're going to look at is from Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, which has actually been made into a very famous, very well-received movie. But I think the movie might be an 18. So I don't advise you go away and read the book or watch the film without checking with your adult first. Okay, we're going to have a quick warm up to get your brain, it's 8 o'clock at night. We're going to get our brains working in the right direction. I'd like you to write an extended simile about this image. And a simile, of course, is saying something is like something else or is as something else. And an extended simile is just where you have a line of creative writing and you have your simile somewhere within that well-developed line of creative writing. So show me what you've got in the chat box. I should add that you can write about any aspect of the image. Might be the ventriloquist doll, might be the leaves, could be the colour of his bow tie, could be anything. We've got some nice similes here. Katrina says the doll was as still as the night. OJ says the doll was as pale as the moon. Now, Phoebe has given me an extended simile, which is very good. The worn-out doll lay on the red silk like it was bleeding out, and its staring blue eyes seem to see right into your soul. So I like what you've done there. You've spoken about the doll, but the simile is sort of tucked away in that description of the red looking like it's, blood. His eyes penetrated the surroundings like an endless void. Very good. Excellent. Okay, some really nice similes. Louisa, his jacket was as black as space. Fabulous. Right, well done, all of you. If you are still typing a simile, you can still type it in and I will have a look at it in a moment. But we are going to move on because we've got lots to get through in our 45-minute session. So I'm going to show you some words and there's a word that connects all of them and I'd like you to have a think about what it might be. Now, if you've read the extract in advance of the session this evening, which I'm sure you have, hopefully you have, then I can tell you that the word in the middle is strongly connected to the theme of the extract. I don't know why Zoom is sort of lowering my head out of view. Maybe it's a sign it wants me to finish for the day, but not just yet. Ambiguity, suspicions, spelt very oddly there. Obscurity, elusiveness, uncertainty, anonymous, doubt. I think that's all of them. There might be one more. Am I going to give away the answer? No, there is one more. Mystery. What do we think? Yes, Phoebe, we did. In fact, Phoebe, you've done this lesson. Vague. That's a good guess. Kidnapping. Okay. Are we ready? I wonder, are there any of you sitting at home thinking, I have no idea? If you have no idea, it's fine because we're trying to broaden our thinking rather than find a correct answer. Fire says unclear. Louisa says unknown. The answer is disappearance. Oh, Katrina says hidden, and that is actually very close to disappearance. Well done. Oh, it's going to make me add them all onto the screen. That's clever. Okay, we're going to have a look at the extract now. In Trailblazers, I will always read the extract. I think it's really important to have a reading together before we continue. And the question that I'm going to ask is about how the character of Amy is presented in this. Okay, so as we're reading through, you might want to keep that at the forefront of your mind. How is the character of Amy presented? Ooh. Okay. When I think of my wife, I always think of her head, the shape of it to begin with. The very first time I saw her, it was the back of her head I saw, and there was something lovely about it, the angles of it, like a shiny, hard corn kernel or riverbed fossil. She had what the Victorians would call finely shaped head. You could imagine the skull quite easily. I'd know her head anywhere. And what's inside it. I think of that too. Her mind, her brain, all those coils and her thoughts shuttling through those coils like fast, frantic centipedes. Like a child, I picture opening her skull, unspooling her brain and sifting through it, trying to catch and pin down her thoughts. What are you thinking, Amy? The question I've asked most often during our marriage, if not out loud, if not to the person who could answer. I suppose these questions storm cloud over every marriage. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? Who are you? What have we done to each other? What will we do? My eyes flipped open at exactly 6 a.m. There was no avian fluttering of the lashes, no gentle blink toward consciousness. The awakening was mechanical, a spooky ventriloquist dummy, the click of the lids. The world is black, and then showtime. 6:00, the clock said, in my face. First thing I saw, 6:00. It felt different. I rarely woke at such a rounded time. I was a man of jagged risings. 8:43, 11:51, 9:26. My life was alarmless. At that exact moment, 6:00, the sun climbed over the skyline of oaks, revealing its full summer, angry God's self. Its reflection flared across the river towards our house, a long blaring finger aimed at me through our frail bedroom curtains, accusing, you have been seen, you will be seen. I wallowed in bed, which was our New York bed in our new house, which we still called the new house, even though we'd been back there for 2 years. It's a rented house right along the Mississippi River, a house that screams suburban nouveau riche, the kind of place I aspired to as a kid from my split level shag carpet side of town. The kind of house that is immediately familiar, a generically grand, unchallenging, new house that my wife would and did detest. Should I remove my soul before I come inside? Her first line upon arrival. It had been a compromise. Amy demanded we rent, not buy, in my little Missouri hometown, in her firm hope that we wouldn't be stuck here long. But the only houses for rent were clustered in this failed development, a miniature ghost town of bank-owned, recession-busted, price-reduced mansions, a neighbourhood that closed before it even opened. It was a compromise, but Amy didn't see it that way, not in the least. To Amy, it was a punishing whim on my part, a nasty, selfish twist of the knife. I would drag her caveman style to a town she had aggressively avoided and make her live in the kind of house she used to mock. I suppose it's not a compromise if only one of you considers it such, but that was what our compromises tended to look like. One of us was always angry, Amy usually. Okay, really interesting extracts. So whose perspective is this from? Can you identify any language that suggests feelings and emotions, or any language that might foreshadow events to come? This is really weirding me out that my head is bobbing all over the place, so I'm really sorry if it's throwing you. I think I can stop it, can't I? So if you want to have a look at those three questions, you can share your answers in the chat box. And then we will move on and start to talk about language analysis. Okay, some good thoughts in the chat. Phoebe would like to say what she thinks has happened. Do you mean to Amy? Um, excellent. OJ says it's a first person perspective, and Phoebe and Summer have both pointed out that it's from the husband's perspective. So yeah, it's the husband that is telling us about his wife, Amy. We're getting it from his first person perspective. Katrina says he seems quite morbidly fascinated with her head, which is a bit scary to us as a reader. And by the end, he seems to be more angry or annoyed with Amy. Yeah, it's quite weird, isn't it, that he he opens with this sort of exploration of the shape of her head. Very strange. Is there anything in there, Katrina, that you think might foreshadow events to come? Okay. Katrina says maybe he does something to her. Well, she has gone missing. She's disappeared. Harshini says, and I know it's not Harshini, but I don't know who's, I know that's your adult's name. He's gonna kill her. He definitely gives us that sense, doesn't he? But what gives us that sense? That's a question for, well, for all of you that are looking for something that might foreshadow um, future violence. Someone says, I think that it foreshadows her death because it continuously mentions knives, body parts, anger. Yeah, it's got these subtle undertones of violence, doesn't it? OJ, yeah, it's very creepy when he says opening her brain. But it could be interpreted as, he just wants to know her. It's a metaphor. Or is it not? Is it a literal, I want to open up her skull and pull her brain out? Yeah, Hashini, semantic field of death. Words like ghost. There's also this stick the knife in. And he thinks the son is accusing him like he's guilty. It says pointing a long finger at him. Yeah, accusing, you've been seen. Lots of really great suggestions now. And actually, I'm quite excited by these ideas. I love it when everyone comes with these different angles to the sessions. Right, okay, great ideas. Let's think about how Amy comes across in the extract. How might you describe her? So you can come up with as many words as you like. You can share them in the chat box, or you can do them on your paper, do a little brainstorm. And I'd like to draw your attention to the question just underneath the picture of Amy. It's Amy in the movie. There isn't a real Amy. Does anyone see her as a victim? Do you feel sympathy for her? So are you, I guess I'm asking, are you on Team Nick or Team Amy? Nick is the husband. Do you feel sorry for her? Okay, Summer. I mean, Summer, you're right. He's certainly describing her in a way that makes her sound, I mean, like the words we've got on the brainstorm there, unhinged, chaotic, difficult. Maybe she is difficult to live with. It doesn't mean, of course, that her husband can can murder her. Okay, that's interesting. Katrina's described her as impatient and adventurous, wanting to have an adventurous life. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm not asking you to evidence your impression of her. So whatever impression of her you have, any words that you have to describe her, are what you are absorbing from that short extract. When you've got some words to describe your impression of her, then you can go to the extract and find something that gave you that idea in the first place. Okay. OJ says Amy comes across as a character who doesn't have a say in what happens in their relationship. Yeah. Should we see some other words to describe her? Here we go. Intriguing, Plotting, erratic, unpredictable, childlike, nasty, chaotic, angry, dominant, scheming, unhinged, unstable, volatile. We could probably add things on there like victim, unstable, um, unloved, possibly. Okay. So this is the question we're going to try and write an answer to. Just make sure I can see, got everything on my screen correctly. How does the writer use language to describe Amy? Okay, we're going to focus in on lines 6 to 12. So grab your pen and draw a little box around lines 6 to 12 so we don't deviate out of the specific lines that we're looking at. Now, I'm not going to ask you to write a 2 to 3 paragraph answer, although you might be able to in the time that we've got. But if that's what I had asked you to do, if I said, can you write me an answer to this question, 2 to 3 paragraphs, what would your confidence level be? Would it be 1, don't think I could do that at the moment? Or 5, yeah, I could do that and I could do a really good job of it? Just let me know in the chat box. Seems like there's some mid to high confidence in the group, which is great. I said the same thing with the juniors taster session just before you. When I do a taster, I don't know what everybody's level or experience or writing style is going to be like. So it's really hard to craft something that suits everybody. But it sounds like everybody is going to be able to give this a really good go, which is great. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you will come up with. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, it should appear on the screen here now. I'd like you to read through lines 6 to 12 by yourself now. And this time I'd like you to highlight any language techniques that you can find in that section. Not just about Amy specifically, but any in that section. And I'd like you to label the language technique and annotate what it makes you think about Amy. Okay, so if you see a violent verb, what does it tell us about Amy? Now, when a language question asks you about a character, you don't have to just focus on what they look like or what their personality is like. It might also tell you about their relationship with other people, how other people view them. It might tell you, it could tell you something more abstract about them, whether they're popular. You know, it doesn't just have to be about their characteristics. Okay. Now we're going to have a breakout room, but first of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to gather some ideas. Okay. And if you start needing some help, you can let me know in the chat box. Thank you to Juliet, Noah, Joseph, and Timothy, who've pointed out that there was a small grammatical error. I need to see this. No confidence, very confidence. Sorry about that. Very confident or high confidence. See, teachers make mistakes too. Okay, I'm going to open up the breakout rooms so you can share your findings. But equally, if you don't have very much annotated on your 6 lines, then whatever anyone else shares, you can make a note of that on your own one. Okay, it's not a test to see who can pick out the most techniques and annotate them. It's a sharing of knowledge and ideas activity. When we come back, we'll zoom in on that paragraph and I'll show you lots of annotations that you're welcome to add to your own copy, and then we'll do some writing. Okay. Right, breakout rooms are open and you've got about 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, we'll just wait for everybody to be back. I think that's everybody. Right. So let's have a look at this paragraph. So it's lines 6 to 12 that we're focusing in on. I'm just going to talk through the paragraph. There might be things that you've already picked out, in which case you give yourself a little tick. But if not, then you can add my notes to your copy. Okay, so there are short sentences throughout this description of Amy's brain, of Amy's skull, and that might suggest Amy's frantic behaviour. It's talking about Amy, and the sentence structures might reflect what she is like in her behaviours. On line 7, where it says shuttling, that verb shuttling, it suggests a really fast speed, and like lots of the descriptions here, the fast, frantic, shuttling, the short sentences, they all sort of lean into that description of her as, being quite, untamable. Similarly, like fast, frantic centipedes, suggests Amy is frantic and quite hysterical, overthinking, fast moving, like a centipede, unpredictable. Talking about unspooling her brain and sifting through it is also very strange, as we've discussed already this evening. But trying to catch down and pin her thoughts, those verbs, catch and pin down, they're quite violent, and there's a violence underneath undertone of those verbs, and it does suggest that her thoughts need to be controlled. Having looked at this extract with multiple student groups before, and you may have already had a sense of this in your breakout rooms, lots of people felt that it was quite aggressive, that Nick was maybe trying to find Amy, catch her, and be aggressive or violent towards her. Yeah, absolutely, Phoebe. That's a really interesting take on it. So we're going to look at the questions. What are you thinking, Amy? Who are you? What have we done to each other? What we do? The rhetorical questions here, they suggest his confusion, and adds to the element of foreshadowing of what will happen, what might happen, further into the story. The metaphor of a storm cloud over every marriage suggests Amy's behaviour is quite stormy, explosive, and that their marriage is similar, unpredictable and unstable. Lots of repeated questions could connote feelings of confusion, either that Amy's misunderstood or Nick is misunderstood, or there's confusion between them. There isn't any good communication going on. So you might have made some notes then as I was going through those. You'll have lots of your own as well, I'm sure. Now it's time to think about doing some writing. Oh, there's my model answer. We're not going to look at the model answer just yet. So I'd like you to write one paragraph to start with. Check the time. Yeah, perfect. So one paragraph should take you about 5 minutes, approximately. If you're a really quick finisher and you're aiming for a top grade and you're about to go into year 11, you might even be able to squeeze 2 paragraphs in, or you might write one really, really long and fabulous paragraph. If that isn't you, do the best you can. You might have a small paragraph with a couple of quotes where you've explained what they show about Amy. That's sufficient. You can do it in the chat box if you'd like me to give you feedback, personalised feedback, or you can do it on your paper instead if you prefer. Okay, that's 5 minutes. Um, if you didn't get to write very much in those 5 minutes, don't worry too much. Getting into a good pace in writing is something that some people have to practice. And you've all got at least 1 year and maybe 2 years before you're sitting any serious exams. So you've got plenty of time to practice your writing, which is something we do in Trailblazers anyway, but it's something that you can do at home. You can, when you're doing analytical writing, it's practice. If you've written lots, lovely. I'm going to show you a model answer. And I'm going to talk through the elements of this answer and the sort of things that you should have in your answer. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, it's hard to know because I've worked with one or two of you before, but I don't know where you're working at. When we have the actual Trailblazers class, I have a sense of everyone's exam board, what their writing is like, what they're aiming for, and it means that I can provide better model answers and better lessons for you. How does the writer use language to describe Amy? The writer portrays Amy as a multifaceted and complex character, described as quite frantic and erratic. The writer zooms in on Amy's brain and the speed of her thoughts, using the simile thoughts shuttling through those coils like fast, frantic centipedes, suggesting she is an unpredictable, that's not good English, suggesting she is unpredictable and prone to quick changes in behaviour, like the quick movement of the centipede. Violent verbs and descriptions. I feel like Julieta and Co are going to pick me up on my poorly written paragraph. Apologies for this. It's because I spent a long time tweaking it and I must have got sort of sucked into the proofreading process and not done a very good job. Violent verbs and descriptions such as catch and pin down her thoughts suggests the narrator, her husband Nick, intends on controlling her. The rhetorical question, who are you, suggests that even her husband doesn't fully know who she is and what she is capable of. The short sentences may also reflect her irrational and unbalanced behaviour and their unsettled marriage. The use of pathetic fallacy in storm cloud over every marriage metaphorically suggests their marriage is explosive and volatile, which evokes feelings of concern for both Amy and Nick, and in particular, Amy's whereabouts. Okay, this is a mid-grade answer. So if you're already looking at exam answers, this is probably something that is indicative of maybe a 6, 7 type of answer. Okay, so I've colour-coded some things to point out to you. So we've got some clear points in each paragraph. They both answer the question, how the writer uses language and to describe Amy. And we've got a point in each paragraph, and the paragraph is built around that point. And in the first one, it's about how she's got sort of layers and she's very complex. And in the second paragraph, it's that her husband doesn't really know who she is and that her marriage is a bit unstable. Then explanation and analysis, and you can see that there's lots of that in both. So I've got quotes and I've explained what they show and I analyse it. Now here you can see subject terminology and technique. So subject terminology, also called jargon, is the language associated with English. Okay, so things like zooming in and simile and violent verbs. And most of these are techniques as well. So things like pathetic fallacy, metaphors, violent verbs. So being able to pick those things out and say, that's what I've seen and this is what it's telling me is really important in GCSE level analytical writing. And at the very bottom here, we've got a tiny bit of effect on the reader. So which evokes feelings of concern for both Amy and Nick, and in particular, Amy's whereabouts. Now, these two paragraphs, whilst good paragraphs, it is lacking in the area of the effect on the reader. So, you know, what it makes the reader feel like, or what response it creates in the reader. So that's definitely something that could be improved in these paragraphs. Okay, so, oh gosh, that brings us straight to the end. I've seen that some of you have shared some paragraphs in the chat box. If I'd got to them before we'd moved on the lesson, then I would have given you some feedback. I'll have a quick look at some of them in a minute. If you want to stay online, I'll give you a little bit of feedback. But to bring the lesson to a close, thank you very much for joining me. Hope you found that interesting, helpful, liked looking at the extract. It's a pretty cool extract, I think. Lots of layers, very interesting. Lots more that we could say about the rest of the extract, and we only really focused on 6 lines. If you'd like to come to Advanced Trailblazers, we start back on Wednesday next week, same time, so 8 until 8:45. And we're going to be looking at language analysis and creative writing. So if you want to join me, then you can have a chat with your adult and get booked on. I've got a few places left. Now, one thing I do ask everybody to do before they leave is a quick self-assessment score. So you give yourself a letter and a number, and this just helps me sort of understand how you found the lesson. And if you were in Trailblazers, then I sort of keep a track of how you're finding things and whether you're enjoying it or not, so I can tweak it to suit you. So once you've given me your self-assessment score, you're very free to go forth and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. And thank you very much for joining me. And I hopefully will be welcoming lots of you into the group next week on Wednesday. You're very welcome. You're very welcome indeed. Thanks a lot for coming. Bye-bye.